Well, what's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 19 of the Roots of Success podcast. I am your host, Nate the Great Peterman, coming at you. And today I have a very, very special guest. I met him a few months ago, actually, through an app called Turo. It's actually a rental car app, and I rented one of his cars sporadically. It's amazing what the universe can do. And we actually connected within, I think, a couple days after. And we really just hit it off ever since, with business, anything with mindset, and of course, with motivation. My guy, John Ivie. What's going on, brother?
Nate, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. It's a pleasure. I'm glad I can definitely get you on the show, man.
Yeah, no, it's crazy how we met. And I think networking is the best way, like when you're just out doing stuff.
Yeah, that's so true, man. Absolutely. And for some of those that, you might be wondering, who is John Ivie? Give me a little bit more about him. John Ivie is the owner and founder of Ivie League Consulting. He's a consultant that actually executes and isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. John helps startups and small companies develop a sales strategy to grow in a scalable way directed at milestones. He believes the how is connected to the why, with everything on accomplishing those milestones as a company, and is important and has to be aligned with the heart as well as the vision. That's deep, man.
Yeah, well, you said it. That's probably better than I would have said it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. So, John, tell us more. Tell us, where do you come from? Where are you from? Sort of tell us more about how you were raised. And really, man, tell us how you got to, having your own consulting business. That's amazing.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, no, that is a kind of a long story. So I'm going to shorten it up into the 5-minute version. I grew up actually in the town that I'm in right now, which is called Bountiful, Utah. So just a little bit north of Salt Lake City, which is just a little bit east of Las Vegas. There you go. So if you know where Las Vegas is, people are like, wait, Utah, Salt Lake City. No, so I'm actually here visiting some of my friends today up here at Epic Product Launch, which is where I'm working with today. I'm in their office, which happens to be in Bountiful, but I live in Salt Lake now. Anyway, so I grew up here. What do we want to talk about me growing up for? Let's talk about what happened after I grew up. Being from Utah, I'm also Mormon. And so as a young Mormon, we tend to go out on missions where we're assigned to parts of the world for 2 years for young men, 18 months for young women. And we go out and just try to serve people and share our experience, what our religion and our faith is about, and sort of express to people our relationship with Jesus Christ and things like that. So we go out there full time for 2 years. I went to England, Central England, for 2 years and was able to meet people in that kind of a context, right? Really trying to figure out what they felt like the purpose of their life was and what they felt like they were trying to accomplish. And so that was really great, man. As a 19 to 21, I came home in 2005, I'm 34 now. So that gave me a really good foundation for understanding people and their motivations and literally what they thought the purpose of life was. We're not going to get into a whole religious discussion here, but I think it's important to have some type of basis to understand what people's what their purpose is, and being able to have that open and front-facing discussion out in public for 2 years really set the stage for my foundation with me understanding people and learning to appreciate their differences and love them for who they were and really understand. Just like Jesus did in the Bible, really understand people for who they were and help them achieve their purpose. And so that's kind of what I do now as an entrepreneur. I help other entrepreneurs achieve their purpose, at least in one part of their business. I choose to do that through sales and marketing because that's what I'm best at. That's where my primary, my primary success comes from. I would say I'm good at lots of things, but we can make a big list of probably you and I both have things we're really good at. But rather than do that, I try to focus down on what it is I do best. And I would say that that's strategy and value alignment, which I really call, sales is a word we all use, but I call it value alignment. it sounds kind of cheesy, and you can really tell somebody like, I'm in value alignment as opposed to sales. Because it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, you can't say, oh, I'm in value. It's sales. Like, really, but true sales is not about convincing someone or manipulating them into buying a product. It's about aligning their needs with benefits that you might have from, like, that are intrinsic to your product or your service, and then just connecting those, and then providing a pathway, like a step-by-step way to engage with those benefits and to become ultimately a client or customer. So that's all sales really is, and that's what it should be. But people get lost, right? They get lost in you got to close business. People become numbers. You start to lose that purpose and that motivation, that drive for who people are. So my experience after that mission service that I did, I went to college like most kids, and put me a couple years behind, but not really, because I feel like that experience was way more valuable.
Oh, yeah.
And I got into finance. So 21 to 25, I was doing software sales. So I started out as like an intern, and I was going door to door selling home security and satellite TV, because that's like it was a good summer job. It paid well. Yeah, you know, I wanted to keep my sales skills sharp for when I was back in the business. But in college, I was like really kind of interested in the whole finance thing, like Wall Street, you know, like that's where the money is, right? All tech companies, everything kind of goes there. That's eventually where it ends up. That's the end game. So I thought. So I was like, you know, I'm going to get into finance. That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I want to be big time. I want to be Wall Street, you know, Gordon Gekko with a big cell phone, go to white collar prison, that kind of thing. Not really. So that was like, I want to do that. And I did it for about 4 years. I started out at Fidelity Investments. I was just raising money I wasn't raising money yet. I was just doing like, you know, mass market retail. Eventually was doing private client stuff, employee stock purchase plans, moved into more that private wealth management side of things. And then I connected with an outside company who was raising money for hedge funds and private equity, like the big time stuff, right? Like huge funds out of New York and a couple of tech funds in Arizona and California. So I was like, I'm going to go do that, man. I want to be big time. And so I joined them, and I did that for a year. I moved out to Newport Beach, and I was like living it, right? But then I was like kind of realizing that I don't like what I do every day. But to me, it didn't matter, right? I was like 27 or 28, whatever. I was like, doesn't matter. I'm going to make lots of money, right? And I'm doing pretty well right now, and it's only going to get better. And then after working with a client out there, the firm I was working for ended up picking up some new engagements, new funds, and they wanted me to come work in-house in Salt Lake. So I was like, awesome, that's going to be great. So I left Newport, came back, and started working with them in-house, and then realized somehow between being there and moving back home, like where I grew up, was like, I don't know if I like this anymore for some reason. It was just weird. And then I had a friend who he was working for a company that got acquired by Facebook. And when I was in California, when I was in Newport Beach in 2012, I went to visit his company and did some due diligence for him. And he was like, why don't you come work here, man? You're like really good at sales. You can help us and we could grow this thing. And I was like, do I want to move to San Francisco and work for a tech startup when I'm already like, I'm big time, you know, on Wall Street? Do I want to do that? I don't think so. And I was like, you know, it's probably not what I'm doing right now. We'll see what happens. Well, about that same time, I moved back to Salt Lake. That was maybe like 6 months later. His company got acquired by Facebook. And I was like, oh man, I would have been like guy number 5 at that company and would have like worked at Facebook. And I'm like, am I really in the end game or are they in the end game? It wasn't all sunshine and roses for them. Don't get me wrong. Like he had his share of troubles with that too. But I think what it did was just open my eyes to like, I'm not looking for opportunities. I was just trying to make money. It wasn't making me like really happy. And it wasn't doing what I had talked to people about on my mission, like filling your purpose and like really coming to change the world like we all want to when we're young and idealistic. So I like said, you know what, forget it. I'm going to go work in the tech world again. So I called that buddy up and he knew a couple of groups I could start with. And I started like consulting for them, I guess, for lack of a better word, really just from a due diligence side of things, like from the finance side. And then I started realizing that the value I could present to them was way better on the sales side. Because when you do something every day and when you are always looking at the expert opinions. You're always doing your research. You're always studying and reading up on the top guys. You just kind of assume that everything you know about something, everyone else knows too. Right. You're like, oh, everybody knows that about sales, right? And they really didn't. Like, it was like kind of weird because they're like, oh, you guys never heard that? And they're like, no. Like, oh, you've never like designed a model where you have a setter closer and then like client success. That's not a thing you guys know about? No. And it's like, oh. So when you become an expert at something, when you become really good, it's kind of an assumption to us that you create that everyone knows what it is you do, or everyone knows about something, and you kind of have to like change that reference level. So knowing that, I was like, okay, I can actually add way more value as a salesperson here. Let me help you build your sales organization from the ground up. Let me have a crack at that, right? And I did this for like 5 different tech companies, and I started to realize some of the same pitfalls that each one of them were having. And some of them made course corrections based on my recommendations and had a good exit, or at least an exit, whereas they were not going to make anything to begin with. And some didn't and kind of carried on their path and are still struggling today. And so I realized at the time when I was making those recommendations, it wasn't like, if you don't do this, everything's not going to work out. And I know what I'm talking about because I'm the smartest guy ever. I was just like, hey, look, from my experience, this direction, it's not going to work out for you. That's just what I see happening, and who knows? I wasn't really super confident about it, right? I was like in that mode of, hey, I'm just new to the tech scene. I've only been in here 3 or 4 years. What do I know? And then I realized, about a year ago, like, hey, I actually do know what I'm talking about, because I actually saw what happened. Like the stuff I said, hey, if you don't do this, things aren't going to work out, actually happened.
Right.
Like, oh, okay, maybe I do know what I'm talking about, right? We call it imposter syndrome. It happens a lot with younger people too. Like, I would consider myself like a little older. What's funny to me is because I know people way older than me who would laugh at that, but your generation, you guys are like 10 years younger than me, and you probably experienced this more than I did. But the imposter syndrome, where you're like, do I really know what I'm talking about? Like, am I like credible? First of all, you can't go wrong with quoting experts, right? So like, yes, if I quote the experts, I'm right. And that's like stage 1. And then stage 2 is like learning to master what those experts have taught you. And that just takes time, right? And I think that's where it took me like a certain amount of time. And so about a year ago, I realized that, hey, all these pieces like came together in a weird way. I never set out to be a consultant or start like a company of my own in this context. I thought maybe I'd start a tech company or like work with some guys in finance, but what ended up happening is I realized that there were a lot of companies who experienced the same struggles that, to me, I had a solution for. It wasn't that complicated, right? It was like, to me, it just seemed easy, but because I do it all the time. It's the same way when I meet with a graphic designer and I'm like, hey, can you build a logo for me? I kind of have this vision in my head, and I'm like describing it to him like a sketch artist would, like, this guy robbed me and he looked like this and he was this tall, and boom, they turned it around. I was like, yeah, exactly. To me, that seems like wizardry when I work with a graphic designer.
Yeah.
But when to them, it's like, dude, that was like 15 minutes of my time. That's like the easiest thing in the world for them. But to me, it's worth $50. I'll pay you $50 to do that for me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't hard for them, right? I think that's the thing that made the difference for me. Like, it's not hard for me to go into a business and tell them about what I know. But it would be really hard for them to execute on it. So I can give them all the advice in the world. And when people hear consultant, they usually think, oh, here's a person who's going to give me some really expensive advice. And they're going to teach me something, or open up this golden envelope and like hold up this magic answer that will teach me everything I need to know. And a lot of times the knowledge really isn't valuable because they can't execute on it. And that's what I do. So that's the difference between like a consultant who will tell you things and a consultant who will show you stuff and actually create something for you. So that's sort of where I differ. I realized that telling people stuff didn't help them, right? I told these companies, if you don't do this, you're going to have problems. Okay, well, what do we do, John? I'm like, well, we should, make some changes. Am I going to stick around to help you with that? Well, no, because I don't think you're going to listen. So I kind of moved on, and then I realized like I needed to be more forceful. Not forceful in like a, I'm right and you're wrong kind of way, but like, let me try and start here, and we'll see if that works. And when it does, you're going to know that that was the right thing to do, and then we're going to present and go forward even further. So I kind of have to establish that faith first get that relationship started. And once they can see a little bit, then I can take it the rest of the way. So that's really where this all came from all that experience. Hopefully that sums it up. But the general idea that like, okay, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm going to have to do it for them at first. But companies who are really good at who are really good at product development, or typically I work with startups who are in the SaaS space, like they're selling software to other companies, or they're going business to business. Not a ton of B2C like stuff, but even in that realm, like the same principles apply. The execution is just a little different. But either way, like that's where I started. Like you guys are great at doing your thing. You're experts at product development. You're experts at computer science. You're experts at communications, whatever operations, device management. That's all your thing. I'm an expert at sales and building sales organizations out of those concepts. So you have your great product, that's awesome. I'm now going to build a sales organization around that. And that's something they can't do. So I do it for them. And that's how we make a business. So that's Ivie League in a nutshell, and why it kind of came to be and how I'm now doing this. And I have a handful of people that work with me to execute on those. People who are more expert than me in, like, let's say retail and product development and certain industries even. Like some people are, like, hey, your medical device, man, I don't know anything about that. The principles will apply. My strategy is going to be the same, but you are the ones going to have to execute that. So that's the generic concept there. Am I losing you, or am I making sense?
No, that makes absolute sense, John. And I think with your story and just with where you come from and all the experience that you've been through, man, a lot of people would think, man, is this dude still alive? I mean, shoot, like people be thinking, whoa, I couldn't imagine doing all that by, 34 years old. And it's crazy because, I'm 22, right? I mean, I'm 12 years younger. And of course, like people tell me all the time, like, Nate, I couldn't imagine, having your own company. I couldn't imagine just, let alone doing a podcast. And it's crazy, man, because a lot of people, I feel like they think like that, and then it puts them in sort of like a negative mindset with what they're trying to accomplish in their life, whether it's their job, whether it's their business, whether it's, making it big with music or whatever their dreams and aspirations are. And I think for you, just seeing the process and how, you sort of made it come to fruition, like with what you're doing now, and going through all the trials and tribulations and the tests. And I mean, man, like just hearing with what you were talking about, like the stories that you've been through, it's incredible, because a lot of people would have quit that had the average mentality. So let me ask you this, because I feel like a lot of people, they do quit, right? Especially around my age, especially that are in the college years, that are getting ready to graduate, or even just anybody in life in general, right? They give up easily. So, I mean, was it something that was sort of instilled in you at a young age? Was it going over to, I know you said you went to England. Was it traveling at a young age? Because I can attest to that big time. Like traveling is incredible. You learn so much, right? You experience so much. So what was that thing, do you think, that really said, okay, John, you're not like a normal person that's going to work a regular job, right? You're going to have your own business. You have basically the blueprint. Like if I'm a company and I'm looking for somebody to basically lay out the foundation, the blueprint on how to get us to the next level, I'm going to call John Ivie, right? Yeah. Ivie League Consulting, that's who I want. So for you, what do you think that thing was that just, man, made you different and made you click at that young of an age? You know what I mean?
No, great question, man. It really wasn't the young age. I think when it clicked. So let me back up. So my dad was a Marine. Okay, he flew a jet, so he wasn't infantry or anything. But he used to, being in the Marine Corps. I mean, it's a little bit of a religion in a way. It's pretty cool. He used to read bedtime stories to me, and when I was a little bit older, he read the stories out of the Guadalcanal Diaries of Guadalcanal. So basically, a journalist wrote for months about his experience with the Marines in the Pacific, like on the ground, actually what happened, and stories about specific Marines. So I grew up hearing like these guys as heroes, right? And like the Korean War veterans and things like that. So he would read stories to me about those guys. So that, I think, instilled in me like that sort of like military discipline or determination, that like a guy can go through hell and get shot and blown up and like lose a limb and still fight for his buddies and still like push through and like go. Like that to me is like the most inspiring like discipline of sort of like masculine endeavor, right? It was like, I'm a soldier and I'm going to win and we're not going to give up. So that to me, I think probably started all that, right? Is being at a young age, having my dad like, hey, Marines are awesome. Here's why, and reading those stories to me. So, but when it really clicked as far as professionally, I think it didn't really happen until I was in my early to probably a little older than you actually, where I'm like, I'm not going to, like, how much influence can I have on the world as a person who works a 9 to 5 and retires early and, you know, travels the world, has a bunch of grandkids? You know, that's up for debate. I'm not saying you can't, but I just realized that if I think about people, like, go back to the last 4 presidents of the United States and compare that with Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg and tell me who's had more impact on the world, right? Like, that's where I'm looking at it and going, hang on a second. The people who have real impact are people who can create and build products and experiences for people. So that, I think, really shaped my vision, was like during that time of discovery in college where I'm like, I don't want to just do a little bit, right? And I know I don't have just the capacity. And I think when you test yourself in a certain realm and you're not feeling challenged, it's like you can go to work every day and like clock in and clock out, and it's like, that wasn't hard. I can do more, right? And you're already doing stuff on the side. I think when you're in that mode, you're like, how do I make this side hustle my main hustle? That's a question people are always asking. And that's really where that derived from. It was like realizing, hey, I can do more, I can be more, I can connect with more people, I can create more lasting benefit to the world as an entrepreneur than I ever can as a working man. And hey, you know what? If I'd have just stuck with it and like kept going in finance, I'd probably have a lot of money right now, but I would not have the experience I have now to really help people. And I love helping startups and entrepreneurs because that's where you'll find the biggest network, the most concentrated network of idealistic, like people-focused, growth-minded, like we want to change the world kinds of people. And a lot of that idealism, it gets, I think, it doesn't get supported the right way. Like, there's a lot of companies who will give money, right? They'll go and raise money for those types of companies, and that's fine. Like, raise money, that's great. But that's only one part, right? Like, raising money is one part. Well, what are you going to do about sales? What are you going to do about marketing? What are you going to do about product development? What are you going to do about a long-term strategy? How are you going to create culture? And what are you going to, like, what kind of experiences are you going to provide your employees? Are you an employee-centered company? Like, do you know how to do that? I don't know. I'm a first-time entrepreneur. What does that even mean? Like, I feel like entrepreneurs don't get enough help from other people because they have this mindset of like, I got to do everything myself. And so to get to where I'm at, I've had to rely on a lot of people. Like, I'm not the product of my own determination. I'm the product of my determination coupled with a lot of smart people who are willing to help, right? And I could probably go through a list of names and name them because there's, you know, you don't forget those people. And I've hopefully impacted other people in that way and helped them as well. So I think coupled like the determination thing with other people's help is kind of where I've arrived at now. And that's literally the core of our business. Like, how do we empower startups to not just grow and get big and make lots of money, but to do so in a way that like marries that, how are we going to do it, to like, why are we doing it in the first place? How do we maintain those ideals and like that entrepreneurial vision and that perspective of like, I want to help people and change the world? How do we marry that to like operations? You know, how do I marry that to like what CRM I use? Like, does that really make an impact? And I think it does. I think you can. Like, I think if you use those tools and begin with that, like the why and how mentality, like that will determine everything else in your business. So that's kind of where I've arrived at. Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense for sure. Like the determination and everything like that. Let me ask you this, John. So let's say I'm a business, right? And because I'm sure you do come across this. Let's say I'm a business where, you know, we're doing pretty well, right? we've sort of been at the same pace for the past like few years, maybe 5 or 10 years. And I'm just not aware that I need somebody, for example, like let's say Ivie League Consulting, that I need somebody to come in and actually break down step by step what we need to do to actually scale up, right? What would you say would be some of those big identifiers within a company that maybe for the audience, the listeners or the viewers that's listening to what you're saying and listening right now, what would you say might be some of those identifiers that a company or an entrepreneur, like a lot of personality brands, maybe, somebody's into, making music, maybe somebody is just, an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker, something like that. What would you say are some of those things that they need to identify first in themselves in order to actually, oh man, I need a John Ivie. I need somebody that can help me out, or maybe it's something, because I know you touched upon, like, and I feel like a lot of people might let their ego get in the way of things, like, nah, I'm good, man. I got it. Like it's all Nate. Like I don't need no help. I don't need no mentor. I don't need none of that. Right.
Right.
So let me look at it from that standpoint first. What advice would you give to somebody that already thinks they know what they don't know? You know what I mean?
No, great question. And that, I think you got to start with so for me personally, I first identify the things I am the best at and the things I like to do the most, right? And sometimes those aren't the same thing. Okay, so like in high school, I was a swimmer. I swam butterfly because I thought it was cool. It was fun to swim butterfly. It felt like you were flying, right? Really just tackle in the water. It was so fun. But I was actually really naturally talented at backstroke.
Wow.
Backstroke wasn't fun because you're laying on your back the whole time. You're looking at the ceiling. You got water going up your nose. And the only way I knew, and you can't hear anything. So the only way I knew if I won or not was because like I hit the block and turn around and look at my time. Like, okay, I won. But like when you're swimming face forward, you can like see who's next to you. Like there's some more competitive stuff there. Anyway, backstroke wasn't as much fun, but I was naturally way better at it. And I kind of regret that I didn't focus on that because I made it this state like 4 years in a row or something. And I got to swim butterfly every year, but I had to work really, really hard to like just to get there on butterfly. I also qualified in backstroke, but I hardly swam backstroke. It was just like, whatever. It was just easy for me. And if I had focused and done that, who knows, man? Maybe I'd have gone to the Olympics, right?
Right.
The point is, you got to figure out what you like the most. And then you also have to figure out what you're best at and like find a common ground in there. And so for me, here's another example. I don't really like operations. I can do it. I'm actually pretty good at it. I can come up with, hey, these are like, let's build a list of KPIs, key performance indicators that make a change or move the needle on your business. Let's track those over time. Let's figure out what our lifetime value is of a contract. Let's figure out what our customer acquisition rate is. And let's plug all those numbers in and variables as we go and prospect and meet new people. I can do that, but man, it kind of wears me out, right? So I would say concentrate on the thing that gives you the energy to keep going, that makes you want to keep, like if you're the graphic designer of that business and you don't love doing the like, I don't want to go to the booth and like be the person to greet all the customers. Like I don't want to be the front man. I love doing the graphic design. Man, focus on that. And once you identify those things you're not good at or that don't give you energy, that don't make you want to be at your business like more and like, oh gosh, that's the last thing I want to do. I would say those are the things you probably need to outsource to someone or either bring on a partner or a fractional partner like myself. I kind of fit in that space of like, people can't afford a $200,000 a year VP of sales, which I absolutely could be for them, but they're not ready for that. So like start here and like, hey, I'll come in a couple hours a week and you'll pay me way less. I always tell people, I'm like, I'm not cheap, but like I'm expensive. I'm an expensive solution, but I'm one that's palatable, right? You can take it over time and it will work. So find that partner. A partner's not cheap. Now you got to give part of your company away to somebody, right? But what's part of zero? Like, would you rather have 100% of zero or 50% of like a lot more? So that's another thing I think as a kid, as a younger guy, I don't really understand. I didn't want that pie to like get cut up into more pieces. But man, who cares how much you cut, how many pieces you cut if that thing is huge, right?
Right.
So it's better to exist in the first place and take less of it than not at all and be the I do everything guy. So figure out what you're really good at, what you like the most, and focus on those things. And then the things that you don't like to do but have to be done, outsource those to other people. That would be my advice there.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And something that sort of touched me there was for sure whenever you said quality, right? Because a lot of people, they want to find them, I wouldn't necessarily say the cheapest, but the most convenient to them, right? They're not willing to necessarily want to make an investment. And I
Right.
feel like that's a big thing when it comes to business and entrepreneurs nowadays. Like the ones that are sort of the outliers are the ones that are willing to invest and do whatever it takes. So what would you recommend to somebody that, they always take quantity. They always go after the cheapest, the most convenient to them, but realistically in their mindset that they know, like, I don't know if I should, like, how can I make that leap? Why should I make that leap to go, after somebody that is quality, that's had the experience, that's made, X amount of dollars compared to the one that, shoot, maybe they're just starting out. Maybe they don't even know realistically how to game plan, how to strategize, really how to actually scale up and just some of those traits. So what would you say to somebody that, or what would you recommend to somebody on how to actually make that decision to go after somebody that is quality compared to somebody that's quantity?
Yeah, no, that is a tough question because I think you got to test that quality, right? You got to know that it's quality first. But when you have that experience, you kind of know like, okay, this is valuable. You have to apply it in a way that makes sense to your business. And I always tell people that, like I meet with a lot of people and I'd say I'm not a fit for over half of them. Like that sounds bad, right? Like, am I turning away half of the business I could get? Hey, I'm a good salesman. I could probably convince them to work with me and continue to pay me, but I'm not really going to be able to provide them a benefit or a value. So as a true salesman, like what I really do, that value's not lining up, right? So going back to the value alignment proposition, I really need to compare that against what I'm offering someone. So if I can't really help them, there's no point in me working with them. Likewise, if I can help them, it seems a lot of times like I'm uniquely qualified, like I'm kind of the only person or group with my team of people. We're the only people that can help because of our unique perspective and alignment with startups. So likewise, when I come in with a plan or a strategy or execution, I don't have a dogmatic approach where it's like, it must be this way. And these are the pieces that go in. And if it doesn't work this way, it's going to fail. It's different every time. It's like you got to work with that heart and soul. I always tell people sales is an art before it's a science. And likewise with these relationships, when you're trying to bring on quality, you got to figure out where that art meets your business rather than the science. Because you can't know where everything's going to connect right away. You got to feel it out. It's a vibe thing, right? And then when you feel it, you're like, okay, this can work. You got to give it a try. And taking those risks is expensive,
Yeah.
I might charge someone $5,000 a month to be their in-house group, and I might only be there 6 or 7 hours a week. I probably end up being more just because that's how I am, and I'm like, I want to make this thing work. But I'm just saying, like, that's kind of expensive. That at 5 hours a week, that's like $300 an hour. I don't know anybody I could hire at $300 an hour. That's expensive. However, if I can do in those 5 hours, or if your other partner, whoever you're looking at, can do something in those 5 hours, like my graphic designer who can do that for me in 15 minutes, if he can do that in that amount of time and get you to another level, like maybe you spend $5,000 on me, but is your company worth 10,000 more at the end of the month? I should hope so.
Ooh, that's deep.
But maybe it's 3 months from now, right? Maybe you pay me for 3 months and we're $15,000 into this thing and you haven't seen a huge return yet. But then on month 3, it's like, great, let's hire some people. Let's bring in a team and let's see what happens. And all of a sudden those numbers start going up and you're like, holy crap. And you ask yourself, like, could I have done that? Probably not. Like, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have the time or the energy or the resources or the experience. So when you're considering those quality partners over quantity, and same goes for leads, right? Because everyone wants to sell you leads. You really got to test them out and see what happens. I'll pay good money for good leads, right? Somebody told me a lead was $1,000, one lead, and it was maybe they'd say yes or no, right? I'd be like, that's not very good. But what if that lead could earn me $5,000? Okay, great. I'd get 5 of them, and figure out what my close ratio was. And if I close 2 of them, you know what? I'll buy those leads from you all day long. But I'm gonna have to come up with $1,000. Maybe I got to go get a bank loan. Maybe I got to go borrow some money. Whatever you got to do, man, like go get what's going to work and start with that first. And maybe that is the cheaper option. Like to also consider that. Maybe it's like, you know what? It doesn't make sense to try to scale right now. Let me just get those first really good customers, those first 5 customers. And I'm going to use that as a case study. And then I'm going to go out and hire the expensive people. So that's my advice in that realm.
Absolutely, for sure. So let's talk about results a little bit, John. I know, you said about like, of course, like monthly, like let's say, for example, like, charging $5,000 a month, right? To some, that's just not cheap. So I'm sure people are going to want to expect results a little bit quicker than somebody that isn't really paying that much, right? So let's say somebody, asks you to come in, and they're willing to pay you some really good cash, right, monthly. Whether it's from your perspective or just a general perspective. And this is really great for business owners as well as people that have companies and entrepreneurs. About what is the expected amount of time, would you say, within your line of work, right? What is the expected amount of time that the business owner or the entrepreneur should actually see some type of results? Meaning, so you already presented the game plan. What's the actual time frame that they're going to be like, oh wow, okay, yeah, I like what's going on here, and what's the time frame where it's like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to work out. I think we should find somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, great question, man. And that again is pretty organic. Like it's going to change based on each engagement. But when I say like how soon are you going to see results, generally I mean like immediately. Okay. Because and some people hire me for a $500 engagement, right? They're like, hey, come in $500. What can you help me with on that level? I'm like, all right, let's look at what you got. And so my process is threefold. I do an orientation and assessment, which defines like, here is sales. It's really a free education. Like, here's what you need to know about sales. And you could go learn this stuff and master it and do it yourself. You don't need me. I can literally give you everything you need inside this orientation. But probably the reason we're having this conversation is because you don't want to do that. But you at least need to understand it. So that's where we start. And then I do an assessment, which is like, what are you already doing? I don't want to come in and try to tell people to start doing things my way until I understand their way first. I need to understand their why and their how. And once I have that, it's really easy to like look at pieces of their business and go like, hey, these are priorities to you, right? Yeah, awesome. And we'll whiteboard and we'll write all this stuff down, that you see here, and we'll figure out what makes sense. And then we'll start with those priorities. And usually instantly we can make those results, right? Like, hey, you've been calling like 20 leads a day and you're not really getting anywhere because you're targeting the wrong group of people. Let's start asking a new question and target a different group of people and see what happens. And then we do that for a couple of days and all of a sudden, hey, those leads are converting a lot faster. So that's progress, right? And and I'm very much in the mindset, like as sort of self-preservation, but also because I want my clients to see the benefit they're getting. I make sure that that's very visible every day. And I would say do the same with people that you work with. If it's not me, it's someone else, whoever, like if you're paying them to do something, make sure you know, and I would say especially your employees, make sure you and they know how they need to be measured. Because if I don't know how I'm measured, like what does that do to me as an employee? Like what does that do to my morale? Like I don't know if I'm doing good or not. Maybe you give me a high five and tell me I'm doing great, but why do I believe that or not? Like how am I measured? And it's hard to measure things on numbers alone. You can't a lot of times, right? Like how do you measure someone who's doing, I don't know, how do you measure somebody who's doing like creative content? Like by how much content they put out a week, by how well that content engages with people. Like, I don't know, how do you measure the value of HR, right? Like you got to come up with measurements that make sense for everybody and that like demonstrate whose value is being presented. So in my case, I like to show people like, hey, we started with this. Originally, you were doing this as a baseline. Now we're here. We've made improvements. And that progress should demonstrate itself immediately. If it's not, man, I'll probably be the first one to be like, I don't think we can really help you. Maybe I was wrong in my assumption. Here's what we've done thus far. For you to take it from there, I think we're done. That's never happened. So I'm confident that most of the time it's going to work. But you're right. Like you need to measure and know what's going to work and how it does. And as far as the time frame, so part one is immediately. Part two is like they should know what those time frames are. So like if a customer, a lot of times in B2B, those sales cycles can be longer. You're working with mid-level or enterprise companies, there's just a ton of red tape and they take forever and they make decisions by committee upon committee upon committee. And so it goes to like 10 people before decisions are made. And then they have to work at certain budgets. Like, oh, we can't make any decisions until Q2 of next year. Like, okay, so I'm going to wait like 6 months before I can get a deal. So we have to come up with new measurements, right? Like, hey, are those deals going faster? Are we shortening those life cycles? Like, hey, your customers said they weren't going to be able to do something for 6 months. What if we get in and sell them instead of a product, which we shouldn't be, we sell them on a new mindset. They're like, hey, why do you take so long to buy stuff? That was really slowing down your business. What can we do to speed that up? I don't need to sell you my product. I need to sell you on a new process of buying stuff. Like that's the type of thinking I'm going to bring in and make those changes to the business. And then they're going to realize, oh, my sales cycle is shortening. Maybe I'm not selling twice as much as I was when John showed up, but now my sales cycle is shortening. So like you really start to have to ask yourself new value questions when you work with contractors and when you work with employees. What are they bringing to the table that I can both measure? And if I can't measure it, that I can feel it out. Like, for instance, my wife worked for a company once where she brought in some developers. They were a software company developing things. And she worked with a local university to bring in some developers to work as interns and help build their product for free. Those interns were getting college credit. She was kind of getting credit at the company for like having brought these interns in. The company was getting the benefit of those guys being able to work on projects for free. So everybody won there, and she was presenting and bringing value to the company. Was that one? And she's in sales, right? So is that measurable? Not really. I mean, you can put it on the list, but that's something where you can recognize that people are bringing you value and you can identify those things, and you need to give them credit for that. Anyway, so I think all those elements play a piece in what you're asking me about timing and like how long it takes to get something from, hey, is this working to, is it not working? And I think within a couple of weeks, like within week 2, you're like, okay, this is actually moving the needle. And oftentimes building a strategy is not a thing that you do where I come in and like, put together a 10-page pro forma and say, this is all the things we're going to do now. Here's a manual on how to win. It's like the Lego movie, right? Instructions for how to be successful, win friends, and whatever. I can't even remember what it is, but like to have everybody like you and all that stuff. Like there's no instruction manual, for instance, in this same with the strategy thing, right? It's like you got this idea, we're going to run with it, and we're going to start with these first 3 pieces first, right? In that orientation, usually it's like overwhelming. It's like, here's all the things you need to know about sales, and you need to have a plan for. And guess what? You don't need them all at once. And maybe you don't need me at $5,000 right now. Maybe you just need me at 500, and I can help you like figure out how to convert some of the leads you got a little better. And that's all we do for now. But then once you do, now you have a ton of leads and a ton of buying customers. Well, shoot, now we need more salespeople. Now you've got a sales training and management problem. Not a problem, but like an opportunity. I can now come in and help sales manage and train those salespeople. Now I'm $2,500 a month, but we've already gotten to that next level. So a lot of times it's a tiered approach. You can't do it all at once. So also keep that in mind when you're working with contractors and sometimes employees that, hey man, this is gonna be part-time at first, but once we get big enough, it's gonna be full-time and it's gonna roll. And hey, I can't pay you all the way right now, but I can give you some equity. Is that worth it to you? And do you really believe in what we're doing? Yes, great. Get on board and we'll pay you some equity. And I have customers that pay me in equity too. If they don't have the cash, sometimes they've got I want to put skin in the game, and then I'm willing to be the relationship dynamic changes a little bit. I'm willing to be more open with them and say like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And instead of, I don't care, it's your company, see you later. It's like, no, man, we got to work this out. Right. And then I think that makes puts some more heart into it. But anyway, so I would consider those things as you're going around looking at contractors or hiring employees for sure.
Absolutely, man. That's some deep information, brother. I'll tell you that. For the audience, the viewers, and the listeners, I'm telling you, if you guys ain't taking notes, I mean, John's pretty much laying out like a blueprint of just what you need to literally look at if you're a business owner or if you got an entrepreneur or a company. I mean, that's incredible insight, brother. Let me ask you this right here. Let's say, with you being in business or, of course, being an entrepreneur, or a brand of some type. Of course, you want to get, a lot of people I see have a scarcity mindset, meaning they want to take on any client for any price that they want starting out, right? How big of an impact would you, and I know you sort of spoke upon this a little bit, how big of an impact is it, or would it be to somebody's company if they actually said, okay, if they can't like respect my quality, then I'm sorry, we can't do it, compared to, yeah, my package is $500 a month. That's my lowest package that I can work with you. Oh man, I'm sorry, John. I got about $100. That's all I can work with. I can only do $100. And, maybe years ago, you might have been like, okay, I'll make it work. How big has that mental shift where it's like, okay, like, no, I know what my worth is. I know what I can do. I know what I can provide. How big has that made an impact on you? And then, of course, how big of an impact would that make on a company?
Yeah. No, I mean, you definitely have to respect your own integrity, right? You can't like devalue your brand or your integrity, but I think you can be negotiable in ways that other people are not willing to, right? And you've got to be non-negotiable in certain things, right? When it comes to integrity, right? Like there's certain people I won't work with because I think they're sleazebags, straight up, I don't like the way they treat women, or I don't like the way they talk about my competitors or my partners. Like there's just certain groups, those things you don't need to compromise on. But when I'm talking about compromise, somebody's like, oh, I couldn't afford you, rather than say like, oh, don't worry about it, I'll drop the price for you, because that's not going to help them. Because if they don't value what you're doing, because you drop the price, you give away a little bit of that integrity, they're not going to value it the same, right? You almost have to, like, I almost think sometimes maybe I should charge more to this person just so they'll respect what they're getting from it. Especially if they're like a know-it-all who has lots of money, and it's like, I already know what I'm doing. Like, dude, if that guy worships money, the only way I can get him to respect me is if he pays me enough, because then he's going to take what I say seriously. So in that other context though, where you're like, all I got is $100, hey man, let's start with that $100. What else have you got? Because chances are they've got, like I said, the cash is not all they got. They got equity in that company. They got, we can do some profit sharing or some kind of royalty going forward. If I really think it's going to be successful and I can make it successful, the confidence lies on me now. And I go, all right, I'll take your $100, but just know the work I'm doing for you is worth this much. And if I sell these products, how much of that do we get? Are we going to share? Because we got that benefit mutually. So I think there's ways you can be creative there and compromise. You don't have to sacrifice integrity, but as long as you're not willing to, you'll be creative and find ways that you can help people and work with them. Because I tell people I work with people who can't afford me all the time. I love those people because they're the ones that probably need the most help. They're the ones I can impact the most. And if I can find a company with a great problem, a great product, and a great mission that they want to change the world, they're going to do some awesome stuff, dude, that motivates me. That gets me excited because I want to help people experience what it means to succeed, and to see that it's not difficult to succeed. It's difficult to keep making yourself go, to keep going, right? But once you actually figure it out, you're like, hey, it's not hard to succeed. It's just hard to want to keep going. And they get that. And if I can give them a taste of that, man, they'll blow up. So, I want to work with those companies. And a lot of times with startups, they can't afford me. And that's great because I can take what they have and their vision's awesome. And if I can scale it, that's more for me. That $5K that they might have paid me that first month, if I help them scale and I have a percent of their company and they grow to, $20 million, it's a lot more than $5,000.
Right.
And I'm also incentivized to stick around for a lot longer. I might not be full-time in a year, but I might still be on their meetings every Monday because it's been a year and we got to help now. I'm like, I want this thing to grow. So again, it goes back to the value alignment. If I can help you in a way that impacts you more now and you don't have the cash, what can we work out? And so be willing to be flexible with people, and you'll find that, hey, there's a lot of opportunity out there that you were previously unwilling or unable to capitalize on because you just didn't have the mindset to make a difference and to really understand their value and capitalize on it. So consider those things, I would say. That works for me all the time.
No, for real. I'm glad you mentioned that because I feel like a lot of people, they don't necessarily look at it that way. They just want to, if they can't necessarily do it, they don't look at it from that value perspective.
Right.
And even myself at a young age, I've looked at things as, okay, like, do they have a vision? What are their goals? What are their ambitions? If we align, like, maybe the income, of course, might not be there, but if I see that we can actually make, because of course, I work with a lot of personality brands like artists and things. If
Mm-hmm.
we can make a move, that right there, we're working with something. You know what I mean? Compared to, I just, they're just straight to the point. They don't have much, you know, any vision, or they don't have much to work with, right? And that really hit home when you said about, like, what are their values, right? What exactly do we have to work with, right? Do they have, and that's a good question to ask too, to like a business owner or somebody, maybe you're in a consulting business or you're looking to get into it. That's a really great question. Like, okay, I understand you might not be where you're at right now, or financially, we might not be quite there yet, but what other things do we have to work with? How can we actually, really progress this, and again, like, really scale up, whether it's as a company or as a brand, right? Maybe if you're, for example, a music artist, how can we get you to get more gigs? How can we get you to get more performances? How can we get a company to actually hit these goals instead of, not hitting them and thinking, oh, we're not good enough? But I mean, come on. I mean, you can hit a goal, like, you are good enough, right? The only
Yeah,
thing that makes you different is the mentality, like you were saying, right?
totally, man. No, and you do that too. Like you help people see that value, and you just give them a little taste of it, right? And then they're like, "Oh man, I'm actually really good." Yeah, that's
Right.
awesome. And I think you can do that for free.
Yeah.
There's parts of my business I'm willing to give away because they'll impact the business enough that they can hire me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So consider that too. Like, what am I willing to give away for free that won't devalue my business, that won't, you know, undermine the success I'm trying to achieve? Look at any business. Like, what business gives away samples? Everybody should have a way to give away samples.
Right.
So, but I think you can do that in a way that benefits people without, you know, devaluing what you do for them. And
Mm.
you do that. You do that all the time, right? Like you helped me. I remember we were driving in the car and you're like, and I'm a little bit older, so like the whole social media thing is not it's not what I do. That's not my forte. My forte is like business and going business to business and working with people, and the whole social media thing is a total new thing to me, right? Like after that mission I told you about, I came home and MySpace was like a thing. It was brand new. Like that's where I lived, man. I'm not joking. Like 2005, 2006, like you had a MySpace. I'm like, what's a MySpace? Why do I need that? It doesn't sound important at all. So as things progress, like you guys grew up with Instagram and Snapchat. That was just like how you talk to your friends. Like it's just a normal thing. So you
Right.
guys get that. And I'm looking at you as the expert. I've been around in sales and business for a long time, but you know what you're talking about when it comes to social media. So you were able to give me some insights
Mm.
about how to engage with an audience and like what it means to be a personal brand and things like that I hadn't considered before. And honestly, you influenced Ivy League a lot just from offering some of those little bits of wisdom that totally were free. It was just Nate the Great being like, hey, this is what I know, this is what I think, and like, man, that really helped me. So don't ever undermine or like underestimate what it is you have to offer people. Like offer it to them and give it to them what you can, because you'll make a big impact, I think. You already did on me, so thanks a lot, man.
Hey, likewise, man, for real. I mean, I think we were both meant to, for sure, come into each other's lives for a reason. I mean, I'm a firm
I
believer.
agree.
I mean, everything, energy, law of attraction, everything happens for a reason, of
Yep.
course. And man, John, tell me, what do you look? I know you're big into the tech space and everything. What's something that maybe has caught your eye over the past, like, few days or weeks or months that maybe it's something like a business idea, or maybe it's just maybe it's a tech product or a company that really is like, I'm gonna have to take a look at this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's kind of been beat to death, but like the whole cryptocurrency thing.
Yeah.
So I've been seeing a lot of new ways to tokenize value in business, to the point where I feel like where things are going is that you'll be sitting at a restaurant one day and be like, I really like this. And it's like a little chain. I know there's like 3 of these restaurants. I like eating here. This is great. I want to own part of this business. You're going to get on your wallet and you're going to, buy like $250 worth of that business, and you're going to have it in Ethereum or whatever. And that's going to be like how we participate. Imagine like the stock exchange on a very, very Main Street basic level. I feel like that's a cool concept. I still don't understand. Like, don't get me wrong. I have no idea how any of this stuff really, really works. But that's the concept. I feel like where things are going is that you and I are going to participate in the ownership and the value of companies in a way that we've never been able to before. And it will speed things up, right? It will get better. Like if you think about the early American frontier, where it was like we were all just, Adam Smith talks about this in The Wealth of Nations, which is a book you should read if you haven't. Kind of the baseline focus economics of capitalism. There's some weird, I'm not saying it's doctrine, but it's a good book to have in the pipeline. Kind of a classic, The Invisible Hand. But he talks about the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, and how they all share with each other in this market, right? They all have a good or a service, and that is an economy that builds itself from there to what we have today, which is a massive global economy and commerce. Well, a lot of that is held in stock, right? It's the value is on the stock exchanges and in people being able to buy and sell pieces of companies. But it's usually like you can only participate in that level like a certain height. And then there's like Reg D offerings, which are only available to people who have $1 million in money or more and make a certain amount of money per year. And they have to qualify with wealth to become a sophisticated investor. By the way, a lot of rich people are not sophisticated, believe it or not. It's kind of funny because like I know a lot of way more prudent and smart people who don't have a ton of money who've just been like really careful and safe, and like the risky entrepreneur people who are like, yeah, let's go out and kill it. They have a ton of money and they're not really that sophisticated at all. Funny world. But the point is, that's like there's a lot of barriers to entry in that to really participate in that economy in the way that we could. Imagine that like those barriers become smaller and smaller. And I think that's what the promise, it doesn't include all the dangers and the other problems that come with it, but that I think is the promise of my main takeaway from like tokenization and cryptocurrency and that like exchange market. That's the main benefit, is that you and I with a couple $100 working a 9 to 5, or I shouldn't say you and I, but it's like the regular man out there. We are out there and can now participate in offerings that otherwise we wouldn't have been able to. I mean, that's kind of literally what the whole drive and goal of capitalism was originally, was like, hey, the queen isn't the only person that can be wealthy, right? Or the person who got born into the right family. It's now like, hey, anybody who wants to make something and wants to participate and is willing to work hard, we can all benefit from it. And I think tokenization and cryptocurrency can actually like support that ideal. It doesn't mean that there's not fraud and other things that can happen inside of there, or that it will supplant other businesses and cause other people to go under. I mean, all the implications are many. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying as it stands, I feel like that's a great opportunity for people, the everyday man, to participate in some of these offerings. So I'm excited about that specifically. And so there's my 2 cents on cryptocurrency. How many Bitcoins is that 2 cents worth? I don't know. You tell me.
No, for sure, man. I mean, that right there, I mean, I definitely, want to talk to you more about that, on the downtime, of course. And I definitely have a lot of people that are in that space that, we can definitely.
When are you coming back to Utah? When are you coming back out?
Man, I want to come out, probably within, I'd say fall.
Awesome. It's my favorite time of year. We should meet up when you come out. Let me know.
Man, I bet you it's beautiful out there in the fall.
It is. It's not like it's like it is now.
Shoot. Yeah, I'll definitely have to make that happen.
For the office. We'll take you on a tour. It'd be great.
Hey, okay, for sure, John. I got you, man. So, yeah, man. I mean, this value that you've been dropping today has been incredible. I mean, I've learned so much just within what's it been, like 50, 55 minutes? Feels like it's only been 20 minutes. But man, tell the viewers, tell the listeners, where can they find you? on social media? Do you have a website and things like that?
Yeah, so I'm like in the business world, so mostly we operate on LinkedIn. But if you just type in hashtag Ivie League, you'll see a lot of mine and my wife's content. Lindsay's a really expert partner and sales strategist as well. So we teamed up that way, not just because we're married, but because she's the best. But that is why there's two lions on our crest, is because both of us was kind of where we founded the company out of. I always tell people we're like two lions because we're really great at hunting and like going out and working, which we get along super well. But if we have to like unload the dishwasher, we're gonna have problems. So kind of have our territory and we manage it. And I do the laundry. She stays out of that because I have my way of doing it. And we've worked that out. But like in business, man, we're synced up. So it's really cool. And we also have some other people that we interface with. But yeah, that's to answer your question. LinkedIn, hashtag Ivie League will be, our website is ivieleaguesales.com, which will be forthcoming here in the next few weeks. Well, we have it all set up. It's just, you're not going to find anything there yet. I've been literally inundated with leads. I have so many people who I think need what we're doing, and that's proving itself because everybody I talk to is like, oh, I know somebody, or we definitely need some help. So I'm working with so many people locally. It's awesome that we're probably going to be having to hire some new people to come on and help, and then we'll be out facing the market. But hey, man, in the meantime, if anybody wants to reach out to me, they find me on LinkedIn. Find us, hashtag Ivie League. We will be more than willing to support them and push them in the right direction. And another thing I failed to mention is that a lot of the value I bring for people is not what I do, but it's connecting them with resources that can help, right? So I work out of an office with a company that literally builds strategies for companies to capitalize, to get money. Like how are we going to get money, when we should get money, who we should go to, if we should go to a VC or a bank, or if there's grants available to us, especially if you're in the LA or Austin area. They know a lot of people are well connected there. I work with people who do marketing, social media, like myself, Nate the Great. I got people who do outsource marketing, like a CMO for hire, like me. But they're more on the we get you leads side of things. When I say marketing, I really mean content. I don't do like the SEO, SEM game. That's not my thing. So I have a network of what I call my syndicate of people who do what I do, but like for other stuff. Even the company I'm at now, their business is prototyping and building for people who are like engineers who have ideas for products. They help take concepts and build prototypes and then launch those products, right? I don't know anything about that, but these guys do. And so I have a network of people who can help startup and business owners. And that's like what I've wanted to do this whole time. I can help in sales, but sometimes sales is not their problem, and I refer them out. And so if you need help on any of those fronts, maybe you don't need to work with me right now, but man, if I can help, please reach out to me. We love hearing entrepreneur stories. We love seeing people succeed. And I think that's like what makes the world go round. So yeah, I'm excited, man. Let's do it together, dude.
Absolutely. Now, would you be willing to take somebody on if they were like, let's say, from New York on a national level?
Absolutely. No, I'm fine. We can get on the phone. We can talk. I'm happy to fly out and meet people if it makes sense, and if there's opportunities there that we can build. I mean, nationwide, man. I don't know about international yet, but shoot, if the opportunity's there, why not? Like, why not? Definitely. Nationwide is totally open for us. We're even going to be getting a tour. Probably shouldn't even tell you this yet, but my wife's super into this whole schoolie thing where like people are converting buses into homes. We're going to get one. We found this bus that's like it's an old Greyhound bus from the 70s.
Oh.
Like all silver. We're going to polish it up, put the Ivie League logo on it, man. We're going to go on a tour and go meet some of these friends we have in LA. We've got a couple of LA clients now, and then out to Austin. We're just going to be driving. So might be coming to a city near you. Who knows? This is on next spring though. So not anytime soon. It's happening. So all I'm saying is we're comfortable to come to you, even if you're in New York.
Man, that's first class service right there, John.
We roll up in our mobile conference room, in our bus.
Man, that's incredible. Yeah, I'll definitely be on the lookout for that. If I see an Ivy League bus, there's John, man. He got the whip.
Yeah, man. Jump in. It'll be cool. I'll get an Instagram going, all that stuff. It'll be happening soon. You guys can start following me there. We'll see what happens.
Heck yeah, you'll get
But
some
I
good
just
content for that.
still focus on this like people here that I haven't like gone out yet. And that's why you talk to me, man. You're gonna help me with all that stuff. So I'm excited.
Hey, man, I got you for sure. And for all the links, I'll put them in the description below for the viewers and the listeners to click. Again, reach out to John, message him. As you can tell, he's a very incredible guy. He has an amazing family, and he's full of knowledge, to say the least. So definitely transform your company, to
Thank you,
say the
Nate.
least, as well. Absolutely, brother. And John, for every single guest I have on the show, I always have them sort of end it on a good note, right? But not just a good note, but on a note that they can actually execute on, right? Whether it's a tip of advice, maybe it's a good book, maybe you heard about that you could recommend, or just something that they can actually go out and, of course, you like to give the blueprint to businesses, right? What would be a blueprint or just that one step for somebody listening? Of course, you've delivered, I mean, enough value already, but what would be that extra little tip or nugget that you would give somebody today?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, it's the thing I see all the time. It's with entrepreneurs, people who are growing businesses, whatever it is, they're always trying to sell their product. They're always trying to push their service. And I would suggest that you don't do that. I say instead, go and figure out what you can do for people and add value. Start with adding value. Figure out what people really need and what they want and how you can help them. And you specifically, uniquely can help them. Connect them to the right people. Maybe you're not the guy, but like go and help people in that mindset. And I guarantee you, you'll find out all of a sudden that like you're connected to way more people than you ever would have before because you were willing to go sit down with someone and help them with something that didn't benefit you at all, right? It was just you wanted to help them and you wanted to do something for them. And you'll find that you'll meet way more people and you'll do way more business. And ultimately, you'll impact more lives doing that and focusing on adding value than you will trying to sell products. And that's always where we start when it comes to sales. So consider that first. And I try that this week. Go meet with some people that you know maybe you've been putting it off or you don't want to necessarily spend time with them. Someone you think you might be able to help. Go take some time and sit down with them and figure out what they're trying to accomplish and how you can help them. And all of a sudden, you'll be surprised. You're like, wait, I think I know someone who can help. And you'll connect them and you'll be a hero. So go be a hero this week. That's my advice to you.
Absolutely, John. Guys, go out, make it happen, execute. John, brother, I appreciate you as always, man.
Hey, thank you, man. I'm happy to be here, so I appreciate the time.
Absolutely, man.